Hey, what's going on, people? Got a question for you. If you had a choice, would you want to be in the 10% bucket or the 90% bucket? Think about that. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be in a crowded situation or do you want to be in a rare situation? What prompted this video was I was having a conversation with a friend. We were just sitting there talking about stuff, and he mentioned something that I haven't really thought about in terms excuse me. I haven't thought about in terms of growing older. Now understand, I've thought about morality. Now morality can be part of growing older. It can have nothing to do with it. Like someone who was born last week could be dead today. That's morality. It can happen. And he's like, yeah, we're growing old. And I didn't say it, but I laughed in my mind. I was like, you're growing old. I'm growing better because I continue to increase my knowledge base. And we went on and just having this conversation. And it was just really illuminating to make me think how much I've changed in the last 4 years. Because I don't think like that anymore. I used to. I used to think like that a lot. Because, when you're this age, you need to be here. This age, you need... That stuff is just totally gone because I started a completely different career when a lot of people would have been like, hey, this is where I'm at. I can make this go another 15, 20 years. I can retire. And I completely started something brand new that I never did before. And I'm learning that that is really great for the new economy. Being able to do different things that you've never done before. Being able to learn fast. Being able to come up to speed much faster. And we were sitting there just talking about this stuff, and like my whole view of retirement has changed. 10 years ago, it was like, get all this money so you can just sit back and do nothing. Now my view of retirement is, it's a totally different ballgame. It's about freedom. Freedom of choice, being able to do what you want, being able to enjoy life. Now, that was the thing. Because understand, this is no reason for you to go out and just like, hey, I'm going to go out and enjoy life now and screw my responsibilities. I'm not saying that. Don't even take that from this message. What I am saying is start working on creating a life where you can enjoy yourself. Have fun. And it was really, really illuminating for me about how abundant my mindset has become. Because I think of stuff totally differently now than I used to, because like in terms of relationships, things that I wouldn't have done like 10 years ago, I am there. Because for a long time I used to date women who were older than me, sometimes 10 years older than me. That was kind of like my crack. And now it's like, as long as you legal, I'm good. And that kind of came by because of a business thing that happened. We all hold these limiting beliefs. We don't even know they're limiting beliefs because we like them and they're cool and they pat us on the shoulder, so we think they're really wonderful, but sometimes they're limiting. And I had a really limiting belief that I got rid of business-wise, and the ramifications spread all throughout my life. And also with my partner dying, that was something else that opened up a lot of other doors. But it got me to thinking, this whole conversation about the 10% bucket and the 90% bucket. 10% bucket, producers, controllers, shakers, and movers. And when I say 10% bucket, you don't have to be Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey. You don't have to even get to that level. If you get to the level where you control, number one, your time. If you can control your time, that's huge. You don't necessarily have to be rich to control your time. When you get to the point where you are controlling your time most of the time, you're in that 10% bucket. You're controlling your time, you're making a living, you're enjoying life. You're in that 10% bucket. See, you don't have to be a gajillionaire or anything like that. Now, if you're in the 90% bucket, whoo, like the other day I had to go to court for, remember, and just another, I'm going to throw it out there again. National Drivers Database. Came online late last year. Check your current driving record because it's better to be proactive. I didn't get pulled over, I didn't get impounded, my car impounded, and I didn't get sent to jail. But it took me some time to work through it, and yesterday was the last piece of the journey, and the judge was super cool, reduced the fine, and I'm getting like most of my money back. So it was a win. And I mean, people were like in court laughing at me because it's like, can you do that? I was like, yeah, sure, thank you. And I was out of there. I almost threw up some deuces, but I wasn't trying to get a contempt of court citations because he was cool, but I was like, he's still a judge. So I was just real grateful for that. But I was just looking at what happens when you're in the 90% bucket based on that. I had to be there at 8 o'clock. Didn't end up really finishing up to like 1 o'clock. And if you're in the 90% bucket where you're not controlling your time, that one event could have cost you a day or two of pay. So you're not controlling your time and you're losing money. While I was there, I was still making money because of reoccurring revenue and putting some other things into play. This did not happen overnight. And I was also looking at what was going on because when you're in court, everybody's buddies. Because like, this is my story, what's your story? And everyone's pissed off because it's just so freaking unfair. And I realized, as people were going up, and how many people were going to probation. And they were going to probation for, in my opinion, small fines. Because mine was like huge. 150, $200. I had to go to probation because they didn't have the money. They didn't have the money. And I was like, wow, because I'm a social scientist. Wherever I'm at, I sit and observe human behavior. And I was just looking, talking to people. There was this couple that come from Alabama because she got to take it up here, but she couldn't get a license. I mean, she was like looking at major stuff. There was this one guy in front of me. I heard like $5,200. I don't know what he did. And I was just like looking at this, and there's a level of despondency there because people are like, this is costing me money, this is costing me time, and I set my attitude because I want to be different from everyone else because I know the people behind the counter and the glass, they can't do anything for you. You have to go to the courtroom and stand in front of a judge. That's who can make the decision to make stuff happen. No one else can. And I realized that, so they get dumped on, and actually one of the clerks really helped me out in the process. Actually, quite a few of these clerks helped me out in the process. Once again, going back to Earl Nightingale's attitude. So I finished that up, and I go have lunch, and I talk to my friend, and I'm just looking at this, and I realized that when you're in that 90% bucket, everything hurts. If you have to go do something, it's always a situation of either or. If you do this, it's at the expense of something else. It's never like it's just a nuisance. It's always something really, really tired. Because I was just looking at people, talking to people. A lot of people were hurting. And this is a trip. Like if you go to the DeKalb County's Recorder's Court, that ATM machine in there, that sucker spits out hundreds only. Hundreds. And the ATM guy, while I was there waiting, he came. And I was sitting there like, this is a trip. It was just crazy. It was crazy. And I started like paying attention to other people because the DeKalb County is on the other side of the world from where I live. And I was just looking, I was just driving over there, and after I had signed in at 8 and I talked to one of the sheriffs, he's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a minute. They're going to come pull people like 10:30. So I went to have breakfast and almost missed it because I got back at 10 and they were already gone. So during that drive, I was just like, and I used to live in that neighborhood. And I was just like, it's just crazy, because most of the people in that neighborhood are in the 90% bracket. And when I say bracket, I mean bucket. They're in the 90% bucket. If you're like an hourly wage person, you're in the 90% bucket because you're trading time for money, which at some point becomes very inefficient. And I was just like, wow, look at this. And it hit me. We all have a choice, whether we're going to be in that 10% bucket or that 90% bucket. But the problem with that choice is people are believing in false narratives. You can be anything that you want. That's not true. You can have anything you want, but there's usually a cost. And some of those costs may not be able to have all this other stuff. I give you a classic one. With women and having kids, being a superwoman. That myth is killing a lot of women. It's just killing them because, in my opinion, and call me sexist if you want to, they weren't really designed for that stuff. To work a 80-hour-a-week job, then come home and work another 80-hour-a-week job. Or maybe a 90-hour-a-week job. That, I don't care who you are, that's going to wear you down. That's going to break you. And you look at that stuff. Now, how do you get from the 90% bucket into the 10% bucket. Number one, you got to get your house in order. You have got to manage your money, or your money's going to manage you. That is the number one thing you will have to do. You will have to get that under control, because from what I saw the other day in court, that was part of the problem, because I had went ahead and paid my fine online, and the judge was actually shocked. He was like, "Really?" It was like, it was an offense I had to show up, and and it was like they had to do some stuff, and someone had to check some stuff, and everyone else was paying that day because they didn't have the money. I have been there, and it got me to thinking, because when I was in the 90% bucket, if this had happened, it could have been a bitch. It could have seriously been a bitch, because I did the simple calculations of what I was making at that time versus the fines and stuff. It could have been like a serious hardship for me, because the money I was making at that time was like $250, $300 a week. That could have been, a day is huge. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of people in this situation. And then I go, what made you jump out of the 90% bucket into the 10% bucket? Then, the easy answers are intellect. That's not it. There's a lot of smart people doing a lot of dumb shit. So that's not it. And that's like, got lucky? Nah, that didn't do it, because, my luck was real bad for a while. Then it hit me. Pain. A lot of pain. When your problem is always in your face, you have to do something about it. But if you can tuck it behind you, or you can take drugs or get drunk and frequently escape from that problem, because I've never been high and I've never been drunk. I know a lot of people think I'm weird when I say that, but it was pain. It was a lot of fucking pain that pushed my ass into a different realm. And it got me to thinking, because I put up the video, the myth of paying it forward, and a lot of people were like, I hate that. No, we should all help everyone. We should be better humans and blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, and this is a truth, I don't care who you are, I don't care what culture you're in. If a person has a problem and everyone around that person cares more about that problem, that person has no incentive to solve that problem. Because the pain level is pushed down. There still may be pain, but it's pushed way down. But when the pain level is jacked up, where you're underwater and you're like, blah, 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 and you're like, hey, I'm either going to sink or I'm going to swim, you start taking action because you have to. And that's what really pushed me in it. Because, I want to go like this romantic notion that, I made this big change. But the truth of the matter is, shit got so bad, I had to change. Because who knows what would have happened. I had to change. And that's when, it's like Earl Nightingale, power of subconscious mind. I started seeking stuff, because the old adage is true. When the student's ready, the teacher shows up. And when I got ready, stuff started coming into my life. But as long as I was like, the pain's not that bad. It's cool being in this 90%. Everybody else is here. It's cozy. My boy's here, my girl's here, my family's here. Virtually everyone that I know is here. Why would I want to leave? Because it's comfortable. There's Kool-Aid and there's some crackers. There's peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Who would not want to leave this? Then when I jumped into the 10% bucket, it was a huge, huge shakeout effect. Huge, huge, huge shakeout effect. I thought I was going to lose my mind, because it's almost like when you forge iron. There's this white hot heat of change, and it hurts. Like in that Mayhem commercial, like, I'm pollen them all up in your nose. They're like, that hurt. Seriously, it hurts, because you're like, what the hell did it? Because you are mentally shifting your energy. You are creating a whirlwind of energy, and it's like uncomfortable. It's very, very freaking uncomfortable. Every day you're just like, damn, and it's real easy to like look, whoa, the people in the 90% bucket, they're chilling. It's G doing the backstroke. What is that, a barbecue? And you're over here in this 10% bucket, and see, because you're not really in it. Because the thing is, I didn't realize I wasn't in the 10% bucket. I was on the precipice of the 10% bucket. Big difference between being on the precipice and actually being in it. Because as you go through this transformational process, you don't actually get in the bucket until you fully evolve. And when I was catching hell, I was right on the lip of the bucket. Just wasn't in there yet, and just went through it. And it was about 2 years of just massive change. And when I was with Rent a Crate, there was this study I read that some of the biggest stressors in life, moving, marriage, new job, graduating high school, it's like 5 that you would think, really, those are stressors? And I had moved, a new job, a new mindset. I was stressed. It was just like, what the hell? Because it was just like always going on. And this is why I had got like really buff, because when I moved to East Point, I had this gym in the basement, and I was down there and was like, because I was so stressed, and that was the only thing that would help me, because life was getting better, but the phantoms of my old life were just calling like, Glendon, you know you want to come back. Glendon, you want to come back. Glendon, bring your ass back. I mean, it was just calling, it was just in there. Then one day, I was sitting in the living room, and I remembered it. And I was like, I'm not going back. Fuck it. I'm not going back. This massive change, shakeout, this stress, getting my ass reamed at Rent a Crate because I was, I'm just going to go through this. I'm just going to go through it. And I made the decision. And at one point, I was whining. It is what it is. I was fucking whining like a little bitch. It's like, it's so hard. I'm working so hard. I was calling the phone, talking to my mom. And, it was just like telling friends, like, this shit hard. And, people was like, well, you made that choice. And it was true. I made that choice. Then the shit started to calm down. And things started to line up. And I was still not really fully using my mindset properly, but I was getting better results, much better results, because I started to elevate. Now, part of leaving the 90% bucket and going into the 10% bucket is, there are some of your friends that you can only hang out with occasionally that are in that 90% bucket. I'm not saying you have to cut them off. I'm not saying you never have to speak to them again. I'm not saying you can't go to their wedding. What I'm saying is, you cannot spend a lot of time with people in that 10%, in that 90% bucket. You can't. You just simply cannot do it. Because this is what happens. Remember, there's already the ghost in this here. Bring your ass back. And then they're going to start talking. Who do you think you are? You ain't no better than me. In the House of Cards, there's this one scene where this guy, now he's a fuck up. He's a cokehead and everything. And one of the guys from back who knew him when, he comes in and he stresses him down and he punches him, and he's just like, you are nobody. You're just the same dude. And functionally, that was untrue. One of the cornerstones of success is change. You can't be the same person. So when you have people in that 90% bucket, you can wave at them. You can go to McDonald's with them. But maybe during the summer an all-day barbecue is cool, but you cannot spend a lot of time with them. You cannot hang with them. You cannot go out on town with them, because they're doing the same old bullshit. Now let's talk about this in terms of human worth. Are you better than they are? No. Are they worse than you are as people? No. But the deal is, your energy has changed. And it's going to create conflict with their old, stale, stagnant energy that doesn't want to change. So you're going to start bumping heads. And it's really like kind of crazy, because, the thing is, you'll have a few people who will root for you no matter what, those true blue friends. But in that 90% bucket, it can be hard, because one of the things that happens in life to people who make the choice to be really successful at the expense of hanging out, at the expense of maybe even personal relationships, is when they get to that point, it brings a lot of envy. Because when you get in the 10% bucket, you realize that people are not envious of you. it kind of fucks with you in a minute because one day you realize, I talk about my dreams and ambitions in this bucket, and everybody's like, that's a great idea. Well, hey, I know a guy over here, and it's like, because that energy in that bucket is totally different. That energy is about uplifting. It's about elevation. So I go out and I talk to my friends in the 10% bucket. It's a totally different conversation than if I talk to my friends in the 9% bucket. And I have friends in both buckets. But if I want to talk business, and I've learned this, I have to keep it in the 10% bucket. Now, I may have someone that's arcing out of the 90% bucket and I can talk to them to a certain level, but it's very hard for a crab to think like an eagle. A crab is going to be a crab. I don't care until that crab goes through metamorphosis of that vetting process and gets in that 10% bucket. You can give them great advice. You can show them the way. But as long as they have that 90% mentality, it all goes out for nothing. And I had to learn that lesson again this week because there's some awesome stuff that's getting ready to pop off for me. And it's sad, but being a friend is not only having your friends support you, but it's also about you supporting your friends where they are. And it's a reciprocal relationship. So you can't be like, I'm doing this. So for my friends in the 90% bucket, that's a lot of stuff I don't tell them. They don't need to hear it. They don't need to hear it because some of them are catching hell. Some are, in like some really strange places compared to their previous life. And for me, I think for me to go through that shit that I went through in the 90s, the late 80s, not in the 90s, well, actually, the 90s, it was great. Because it's like when I used to sell cars, and this is a lesson I had to learn the hard way, you're better off to find out what your prospect can afford and show them that first. Because if you show them some shit they can't afford and they fall in love with it, it is hard as hell to push them into what they can afford. And they'll go somewhere else and buy what they can afford because of the shame factor. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. So it was, for me, it was great that I went through that back then because it prepared me for this today. Whereas some of my friends are going through what I went through now, and they're older and they're going through ageism, like the movie, The Company Man. Get it. Great movie. Great for these times. And I'm looking at them trying to give them counsel, but they still have the 90% bucket mentality. And until they make that change, like an agent in the Matrix, do that thing, there's nothing I can do for them. I can just kind of be there and be an example, and that's it. And to piggyback on my other video, paying it forward, that's the whole deal. If they're not in a position to make that change mentally, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Now, if you want to get into the 10% bucket, realize you will have to work. There is no, I'm in a 10%, no. Because the work is going to be in here. It's going to be internally. That's where 90% of the work will occur. It will occur on the inside of you. 90% of the work will occur on the inside of you. Maybe 10% cosmetically. You may lose weight or something like that. But 90% of the work will be internal. And that 90% of internal work that you do is going to pay off dividends thousands and thousands and maybe even millions of times over the work that you do. That's how big it is. Another way to get into the 10% bucket is to be real with yourself. If you are a scrub, because I remember a good friend of mine was like, why do you call yourself a scrub? I said, correction, I was a scrub. So you have to be that real with yourself. I was fucked up at one point. I mean, that's just reality. I was a fucked up person. And if you're like, I was just going through some hard times or the world was... No, I was fucked up. And I had a fucked up mindset. Until you can get that real with yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to make the transformation because you're operating on false narratives. You're operating on false information. You think you're better than you are, and you think it's the world that has the problem. You think that it's other people and your problems are external. No, they're not. Pookie. They're internal, Pookie. They're internal. So you have to get real. The second part is consistent action. And this is how you can create consistent action. So the 6-month goal that you're going to work on X, No matter what happens, you're going to continue working on it, and then you will reevaluate at the 6-month mark. Because if you set like a 30-day goal, you may opt out just when it's about to get good, like in the story Acres or Diamonds, because you just didn't go far enough because you didn't see those immediate results. 6-month goal, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to make it happen. Because the two things are going to happen. Say it doesn't do what you want to do. You have 6 months of experience that you didn't have before. In this book, and I'm recommending it, So Good That They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, get the audio book. Do not get the print book, get the audio book, because you're going to need to listen to it 3, 4, maybe 5 times for you to get it all. It talks about that. You have to do something. You have to gain experience. That's why someone who's not a college graduate can either get $1 million job or create $1 million company, because this person has credentials, but this person has experience. People pay for experience. In the real world, people pay for experience. Give you an example. I had a company and I got them to change their payout rules, like their accounting rules, because they were like, send us an invoice or send us, I forget the name of the accounting feature, but send us this and we'll pay you 60, 90 days. And I was like, this company I work for does not operate like that. And I went through that 4 at a time. Excuse me. I went through that. The allergies are kicking my ass. All right, I'm back. I went through that 4 of the times. And I knew what to say. I knew what to do. I knew how to help them. I told her what person in their accounting department, because you had to go to the CFO level to make this happen, or a VP level. And she was like, wow, that was painless. I didn't think they were going to go for it. But experience. So you can be really desireful. You can have hopes, dreams, and ambition. But nothing replaces experience. Nothing. And to get experience, you have to do some things. You have to put yourself in action. Prolonged action, and you have to move forward. Another thing about the 10% or 90% bucket. To leave the 90% bucket, you have to climb up to the lip and look down. If you've ever been in a helicopter or you've ever jumped out of a plane and you see the sky, the land the way it is, it's all gridded out. It doesn't look like it because when you're on it, you can't see it. But when you elevate and look down, you see it for what it really is. And everything's on the grid. Everything. So you look down the bucket and you'll see the grid of the bucket. You'll see despondency. You'll see jealousy. You will see it because you have risen above it and you have a different vantage point. Once you do that, it becomes easier to leave that bucket because you're like, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there because it's crowded. Not everyone's pissed off, but there's lack and there's a bunch of false narratives. Because I want you to think about it. It goes back to choice. It really goes back to choice. Do you want to have a life where someone else is always pushing the buttons, pulling your strings, you're just a marionette dancing on the stage? Or do you want to be the guy or the gal that has a hammer, power tools, and nails and goes to the lumber yard and build your own stage? Because I'm going to tell you, when you have your own stage, when you have your own economy, you have your own tribe, it's a better world. It's a much better world. Because I was just listening to my friend and I was just like, I got another friend, and this is something else too. I can pretty much, unless I'm on the phone with a consult or I'm doing something, because if I'm writing, I don't answer the phone. If I'm doing videos, I don't answer the phone. But other than that, I can pretty much answer the phone anytime. And my friends they all call between 5 and 7 p.m. after they get off work, because they can't talk when they're at work. Or they don't go to lunch because they've got projects to do. Understand, I'm not like saying don't do your job to talk to me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they don't have the freedom to do what they want most of the time. It's not there. I want you to think about that. today, in our world, in the year of our Lord 2013, there are so many opportunities. You can create your own environment. And like I said, you don't have to be, a billionaire. You don't even have to be a millionaire. If you can make 60 to 150,000 a year, stay out of crazy debt, you can have an awesome freaking life. Awesome. If you're controlling your time. Because, one of the biggest things that I don't have to pay for is gas. Unless I'm out doing some consulting work and I go somewhere, that's just not a cost. Really, I don't even have, I have a lot of clothes from the storage auction business, but I don't have to buy clothes. There's so many things that when you are creating your own environment, like let's say you want to create a store, right? Say that you are a guy and you're married and your wife has 2.8 kids and you create this store. Hello? The kids can come to the store with you because it's your store. You can bring your kids to work with you whenever the hell you want to because it's yours. A lot of places, you can't do that. So, bam! Say you bring the kids to the store and you're watching them. There's no daycare. Daycare is no joke. I think it's what? Someone was telling me it's like $1,500 a month now. That's a lot of cheese. That's $18,000 per year. 18 grand. $1,500 a month? Do the math. So that's not cheap, and I'm not saying just throw, your pride and joy anywhere, but understand, that's a lot of cheese. If you're making 38 grand and you're paying that much in daycare, you might be better off staying at home and getting a part-time job. Fiscally and emotionally, it may net out the same, except emotionally, you're just going to be much better off. But, that's just me talking from the G-verse or from the hustler mindset, from making it do what it do to serve you. And that's one of the things. Now, if you really, really want to get out of the 90% bucket, you're going to have to make some critical choices. And this is another problem that's endemic of people in the 90% bucket. Always want to have all the options open. Man, I had a chance to own the McDonald's, but that would have tied me down. I had a chance to get this, but they wanted me to work too much. I need to keep my options open because you never know what's going to happen. I've known many people like that, and there are some who are still waiting for that right option to happen. Before you know it, they're going to be 80, 90 years old, still waiting on that option. Do you want that to be you? Do you really want that to be you? I'm telling you, you can change your life in a year. But you're going to have to do some things that you're not doing right now. You can make that happen. Just saying. And I'm going to tell you, when you get out of that 90% bucket, you're going to feel like you can breathe again. That's one of the things about, my 10% bucket is this YouTube channel. And, I had another another email. He used the word fuck too much. And I'm just like cracking up, right? And I was like, I sent back a nice response. I said, well, this is part of the G-verse. And I get to be myself. And if me being myself offends you, then probably we don't need to be together. And that was the response. And then I got the response back, oh no, I'm still watching videos. I was like, see, that's the thing. You can be who you are. Now, I want you, let's talk about the profanity thing. Who's the highest paid radio host ever? You said Rush Limbaugh? Nope. Howard cussing my ass off Stern. Biggest radio jockey deal ever. Ever. So, there's apparently a lot of people can deal with a little cussing. Just saying. Alright, this is Glendon, and I'll see you on the good side. Alright, I'm going to do a special little deal here. Special. Audiobooks only. This week, I won't say this week. I'm going to say 2 weeks. That's right, 2 weeks from the time that this video is posted. You can get all 3 of my audiobooks for $40. How do you make that happen? Go to storageauctionshogun.com, hit the contact form and say, I want those 3 audiobooks for $40, G. And I'll send you a link. And then you make the payment. And then you get the books. Bada bing, bada bing, bada doom. However else it's said. Whatever. But with that, I will see you on the good side.